Hi, my name is Dave Arnold, and I teach at UWSP's Department of English, and I'm here today to talk about Blood Meridian. Blood Meridian is Cormac McCarthy's fifth novel, published in 1985, and I was given this very book for my 25th birthday. It was given to me by one of my best friends, and after I read it, I rushed out and bought all of the other ones that the bookstore had. This was before you could Amazon up all of the books, so I bought all the ones the bookstore had, and since then I've read all but two of them. He's published 10 novels and a bunch of screenplays and other stuff. Blood Meridian is considered his masterpiece, though it wasn't especially well received when it was first published. Blood Meridian is nominally a Western. It's set in northern Mexico and southern Texas. This is McCarthy's first Western-themed novel. His first four were set in Appalachian Tennessee. And then after Blood Meridian, he published the three books known as the Border Trilogy, and for the Border Trilogy he won some kind of mainstream recognition, the first in his career. The first of the Border Trilogy novels is called All the Pretty Horses. That came out, I think, in 1991. There was a movie based on that with Matt Damon and Penelope Cruz. Blood Meridian is also based on historical figures. McCarthy has said that he read several hundred books researching material for Blood Meridian, so it's loosely based on historical material. It's nominally the story of a character known only as the Kid, who falls in with a gang of scurrilous murderers, the Glanton Gang, who range through northern Mexico killing Apaches and anybody else, it turns out, who has black hair for the bounty they can get on the scalps. The Glanton Gang segments are based on, among other works, a book by a man named Samuel Chamberlain called My Confessions, The Recollections of a Rogue. Chamberlain wrote this in the later part of his life, in the 1890s, but he rode with the Glanton Gang, John Joel Glanton and the other ruffians in this gang, between 1849 and 1850, and that's when the material in this book takes place. Excuse me, the novel's antagonist is a figure named Judge Holden, who's about 7 feet tall and 350 pounds. He's said to be totally bald, totally hairless. He's a cheerful, amoral, violent, fiddle-playing, murderous pedophile, and also a brilliant naturalist. And the judge appears in Chamberlain's account, but his real identity is something of a mystery. The novel actualizes a deeply but ambivalently existential worldview, and it's also, importantly, a comment on the American philosophy of manifest destiny and our genocidal, imperialistic conquest of the West. The novel's sort of philosophical backbone is based on the sometimes contradictory philosophizing of Judge Holden, who's also incredibly eloquent as well as incredibly violent and incredibly smart. His main credo is, whatever exists without my knowledge exists without my permission. Another cool Judge Holden quote has to do with war, and this also becomes kind of the gang's credo. In this passage, the judge is being quizzed by an ex-priest that is part of the gang. And the ex-priest says, "The good book says that he that lives by the sword shall perish by the sword." The judge smiled, his face shining with grease. "What right man would have it any other way?" he said. "The good book does indeed count war as an evil," said Irving, "yet there's many a bloody tale of war inside it." "It makes no difference what men think of war," said the judge. "War endures. As well ask men what they think of stone. War was always here. Before man was, war waited for him. The ultimate trade awaiting its ultimate practitioner. That is the way it was and the way it will be. That way and not some other way." So that's not only the judge, but really kind of the credo of the gang as they range through northern Mexico on this murderous business of theirs. They exist in a kind of moral vacuum. There's no external framework for moral judgment. The novel provides no moral judgment. Brutality and suffering are the twin indices of the real, because only those are sort of verifiably actual. The gang's opportunistic nihilism creates a metaphysically smooth space in which there is no difference between what they do and what they are. They are simply these violent actors. They revere nothing and are thus kind of comfortably at one with their world. Predictably, the novel ends badly. But but it's a novel that impressed me when I was a young man for its scabrous violence and its absolute absence of explicit moral commentary. It is hair-raising and lyrically beautiful, and it's a gorgeous, bloody gem of American prose. And I want to read one more passage, and this passage kind of describes the universe that they ride in. One of the refrains in this novel is, "They rode on." It's about a 400-page novel, and so many times that phrase is repeated, "They rode on," and they just ride through this arid, amoral landscape. And this is a particularly, again, kind of a lyrical passage. They rode all day upon a pale gastine. Gastine means a waste or derelict land. They rode all day upon a pale gastine, sparsely grown with saltbush and panic grass. In the evening they entertained upon a hollow ground and rang so loudly under the horses' hooves that they stepped and sidled and rolled their eyes like circus animals. And that night they lay in that ground. As they lay in that ground, all heard, the dull boom of rock falling somewhere far below them in the awful darkness inside the world. On the day that followed, they crossed a lake of gypsum so fine the ponies left no track upon it. The riders wore masks of bone black smeared about their eyes, and some had blacked the eyes of their horses. The sun reflected off the pan, burned the undersides of their faces, and shadow of horse and rider alike were painted upon the fine white powder in purest indigo. Far out on the desert to the north, dust spouts rose wobbling and augured the earth, and some said they'd heard of pilgrims, borne aloft like dervishes in those mindless coils, to be dropped broken and bleeding upon the desert again, and there perhaps to watch the thing that had destroyed them lurch onward like some drunken djinn, and resolve itself once more into the elements from which it sprang. Out of that whirlwind no voice spoke, and the pilgrim lying in his broken bones may cry out, and in his anguish he may rage, but rage at what? And if the dried and blackened shell of him is found among the sands by travelers to come yet, who can discover the engine of his ruin? So that's the world they live in. That's the world of this novel. And by gosh, it's a heck of a novel. So check it out. Blood Meridian, Cormac, McCarthy. Whew. It's a hair raiser.